Hi everyone and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect once again. It's good to have you all back. I did miss most of you earlier on in the day, in today morning's broadcast. For those of you that missed that mid-morning broadcast, but it's good to have you back. Plenty for us to talk about tonight, and yeah, let's get everything in order and have our conversation started just right away. So allow me to test our audios for purposes of being quite particular, ensuring that everything is in place in regards to what we need to do in tonight's broadcast. So as we wait for the others to join the community, to join the broadcast and discuss football and discuss transfers and discuss everything that has made the news tonight. So that would be really, really important for us to get out of the way. So yes, we're going to be speaking about Alejandro Garnacho. We're going to be speaking a bit about Ruben Amorim. We're going to be speaking about Erik. We're going to be speaking about Arsenal's women's side and that kind of conversation. As we speak, PSG are playing up against Reims in the Coupe de France. They are leading that game by 2 goals to 0. So we're going to talk a little bit of that. They are looking to win a domestic treble as well as win the Champions League. So, guys, if you join us, kindly like the broadcast, kindly consider subscribing to the channel if you're new with us. Let me ensure that all our chats will be visible to us, so that we do not suffer from what we did suffer from yesterday when I was unable to read some of your chats in real time, and we missed quite a couple of them. So let's get the conversation going. Invite your friends. If you're new here, kindly consider subscribing, but invite your Manchester United friends, your Liverpool colleagues, your Arsenal colleagues. Let's get into the conversation. Barcelona, Real Madrid, and everything in that respect. So guys, kindly like the broadcast and also consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. But more importantly, let's engage in the comment section, in the chat room. Let me know where you're joining us from. What country are you joining us from? But it's good to really have you all here. And I hope we do not miss any of your messages. So I'm waiting for your engagement. I'm waiting for all your engagements. I'm waiting to hear from you guys. Let this not be a one-way street chat where it's just me doing all the talking. Let me first hear from you. How has been your day? Where are you joining us from? I would like to hear from many of you. But much appreciate. I want to send my appreciation to all our ardent followers. Okuyo Amlen, Mariam Momoto is here. Hello, my brother. I'm calling all Liverpool fans to come and have fun. Indeed, Mariam. So yesterday we did have a Prince Nkosi. We were with him for quite a very lengthy time because yesterday's broadcast went on for about 2 hours, and we had a very fruitful conversation and engagement. So engage me right down in the comment section. I'll be responding to your questions. I'll be responding to your comments. I'll be answering your questions. But more importantly, we'll be exchanging ideas. We'll be talking about the things that interest you, the things that concern your teams, and that kind of thing. So let's kick things off at Arsenal, because Arsenal women have just won their second UEFA Champions League of the FIFA women's version. That's the second title. They did make it to the final for the first time in 18 years when they managed to knock out Olympic Lyon. I think 5-3 on aggregate score. They lost the first leg at the Emirates by 2-1 and went to France and won that game by 4 goals to 1. While Barcelona, who were who had retained the title for the last 2 seasons, knocked out Chelsea 8-1 on aggregate to advance to the final that was played earlier on today in Lisbon, and Arsenal have won that game by 1-0 to be crowned the Champions League winners for the women's football. So congratulations to all Arsenal fans and sympathizers in that respect. So really interesting news there for the Arsenal fans. That's some of the biggest news that is making the rounds in as far as the world of football is concerned. But also, as we speak, PSG are up against Reims in Coupe de France final. They are playing the Coupe de France final, and that game is going on. It should be about the 40th minute thereabout, and PSG are leading that game by 2-0. Both goals are scored by Bradley Bacola, with Desire Doué providing the assists for Bradley Bacola to have PSG in the lead, who are looking to complete a domestic treble. And remember, they are also going to be playing in the finals of the UEFA Champions League next weekend. That's on Saturday, when they will be up against Inter Milan, who missed out on winning or on defending the Scudetto last night when Napoli went on to beat up against Cagliari by 2-0. Those goals scored by Romelu Lukaku as well as Scott McTominay to ensure that Napoli were crowned champions of Italy for the second time in a space of 3 years. On the same night, Inter Milan managed to beat up against Como, who were down to 10 men by halftime, following the red card to Jose Manuel Pepe Reina. They managed to beat them by 2-0. So, but that result ended up to be another mere win for Inter Milan, because it didn't yield anything. Meanwhile, Antonio Conte becomes, I think, the most successful manager, I think, in as far as Italian football is concerned, in terms of winning the domestic league, because he's won it the 50th time, but also he becomes the first manager to win it with 3 different Italian teams. He won 3 Scudettos with Juventus, he won 1 with Inter Milan, and then he's won 1 with Napoli. Speaking of Napoli still, of course, Scott McTominay was also voted the MVP. That's the most valuable player of the season. And he has completed the season with a personal tally of 12 goals and 4 assists, giving him a personal contribution of 16 goals. On the other side, Romelu Lukaku managed to score 14 goals in the campaign and provide 10 assists. Yesterday, that goal that he scored, he powered through that defense like it was nothing to him, really. And you could see the amount of power, strength, and motivation that he had as he tried to go for it. And indeed, that helped Napoli win the Scudetto. And next season, we'll be seeing them in the UEFA Champions League. And they are looking to strengthen their squad. And they are looking to bring in players like Jonathan David, who has multiple offers on his table. But it is Napoli who are leading the way, because that's where the sway is leading. That they will sign the 25-year-old Canadian international, who has scored about 16 goals and provided, I think, about 5 assists in the French League 1 this season. He's going to be a free agent. They are also trying to sign Kevin De Bruyne from Manchester City, who is equally going to be a free agent. The 33-year-old Belgian international has given the green light to Napoli, and he will be joining them on a 3-year contract when he leaves Manchester City. So they are making really strong moves in the market. They are also considering coming back to Manchester United for Garnacho, and we're going to speak about Garnacho in a bit. But they also do have alternatives should they fail to land Garnacho, who they missed out on in January because of an overvaluation. Because at the time, Manchester United wanted up to 70 million euros. Napoli were only willing to offer up to 50 million euros and that kind of thing for the 20-year-old Argentine international. Then still Napoli, they are also interested in signing Rasmus Højlund from Manchester United. He's a striker that they are equally looking at to land in as far as strengthening their squad is concerned in preparation for next season. So they are one of those teams that are making their moves in as far as the transfer market is concerned. So that in itself is really, really positive news. But congratulations to all Napoli fans. If any, couple of I think about a week or so ago, we had somebody called, was it Santina from Italy? They were on here with us having a conversation and that kind of thing. But it's good. It's all good there. Congratulations to Napoli. Then away from the Italian Serie A, we head to Spain, where Luka Modric was given a standing ovation. The game was brought to a halt as he was being substituted off. Both Real Sociedad players and Real Madrid players accorded him a guard of honor, including match officials and, both coaching camps from Real Madrid and those of Real Sociedad. They accorded him a standing ovation and a guard of honor as he walked off the pitch when Real Madrid were beating up against Real Sociedad by 2-0. Kylian Mbappe scoring both goals in that fixture. Apologies, guys. I can see, I think PSG have just scored here their third goal of the night. I think they've just scored to make it 3-0 in that tie against Reims. Excuse me. Yes, against Reims in the Coupe de France final. So looks like they are sealing that title. So we're speaking about Luka Modric. It's Achraf Hakimi who has scored that goal, that third goal. Really, very, very sumptuous strike. Really, very, very beautiful goal. He runs in at the back post from the edge of the 16 yards box to score that goal. I think it's again Bradley Bacola who has provided the assist for that one. Anyways, so Luka Modric bows out of the Santiago Bernabeu in high spirits and was accorded quite the respect that he deserves after spending 13 years at Real Madrid. For those of you that care to remember, he did sign for Real Madrid in 2012 when Real Madrid was still, excuse me, under the charges of Jose Mario Felix Moreno. In his first season, things didn't really go according to plan. He had a slow start to his career in Spain. He was voted the worst player or the flop of the season for that first season, 2012-2013, at Real Madrid. And yet, a decade later, or over a decade later, he is the most decorated Real Madrid player in regards to trophies. He's won a total of 28, including 6 UEFA Champions League titles. So really, really, there, well deserved. He will be joining Real Madrid for the FIFA Club World Cup tournament, like we spoke about for those of you that were with us yesterday and also today mid-morning. We spoke about him, so he will be joining them, and then after that he will be leaving the Los Blancos completely. Then Kylian Mbappe, I think, was scoring what, his 34th goal of, no, his 31st goal of La Liga this season to walk away with the Golden Boot in his debut season with the Los Blancos. So really, really interesting what the kinds of numbers that Kylian Mbappe has been able to post this season in what most thought was a slow start to the campaign. He scored 43 goals across all competitions, and I think he scored 6 goals in the UEFA Champions League. Well, thereabout, yeah, I think. So then, and then in La Liga, he's won the Golden Boot with 31 league goals. So really, really impressive start to his career at the Santiago Bernabeu. Even though most people think that he did disrupt the way Real Madrid have been going about their football, and he's sort of accosted Rodrigo, who is now open to a move away from the Santiago Bernabeu. But again, we spoke about Rodrigo yesterday, and I think even this morning, Arsenal are interested in signing him, but they are being off-put by his wage demands that are in the region of 10 million euros per year, which puts it at about 246,000 per week, or there are about figures in that region. That's before taxes. So, which Arsenal think is quite high, out of their wheelhouse. They are looking to manage their wage bill as something they've really, really been intentional on doing in the post-Mesut Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette kind of era. When they got rid of most of those players, they've really, really been intentional on managing their wage bill. and that kind of thing. So it's quite interesting and important that those conversations are coming out early enough, but it is being reported that that's the major hiccup, because usually some clubs tend to want to agree on personal terms with the player before they move on to club-to-club negotiations to see if they can agree to a fee and then eventually payment terms and etc. Arsenal do have a very good relationship with Real Madrid because they've so far signed, I think, about 3 players from Real Madrid: Julio Baptista, Mesut Ozil. They've signed Dani Ceballos on loan. They've signed Martin Odegaard from Real Madrid, and so the two sides, the two parties, do have a very good relationship that is respectable to one another and that kind of thing. So we'll wait to see what more sips out of the Los Blancos Cup. But that was it in regards to Real Madrid and Luka Modric and things in that line. Then where next should we take the flight to? Let's go to Bayer Leverkusen, who are on the verge of appointing manager Erik ten Hag on a 2-year deal. Meanwhile, that PSG game has gone into halftime with PSG in a 3-0 lead against France in the Coupe de France final. Yes, we are moving to Bayer Leverkusen, who are on the verge of appointing former Manchester United manager Erik ten Hag on a 2-year contract that would run until June 2027 for him to replace a departed Xabi Alonso at the club. Very, very good project that is quite interesting to Erik ten Hag. Remember, Bayer Leverkusen last season won the cup double, they won the double, winning the German Bundesliga and the DFB Pokal, and also reached the finals of the UEFA Europa League. This season, they finished second in the league behind the champions Bayern Munich, and so that means they will be playing in UEFA Champions League next season. They are going to lose some players. They have already lost Jonathan Tah. That's the 29-year-old German centre back who has joined Bayern Munich. Then they've lost Jeremy Frimpong. That's a right back. They're also going to lose Florian Wirtz, who is on the verge of joining Liverpool after he gave a green light to Liverpool that he will be joining them. He will be choosing them over Bayern Munich and that kind of thing. So Erik ten Hag could be the next Bayer Leverkusen manager next season. He's worked in Germany before, I think at Bayern Munich as in a coaching role, an assistant somewhere in the ranks. So then, away from Erik ten Hag, still speaking about Bayer Leverkusen, Tim Oman to Bayer Leverkusen is considered a done deal. That's after a full agreement had been reached with VfL Bochum, a contract up to June 2029 with medicals booked, because they do really rate highly. That's the 21-year-old centre back that they are adding to their ranks in the aftermath of losing Jonathan Tah. So that's one of the players that Erik ten Hag could be working with come next season. Then, still in the German Bundesliga, Leroy Sané has an offer from Galatasaray worth about 10 million euros per year. That's the offer he has on table from Galatasaray, but there are also inquiries from some Premier League clubs as well as Napoli. Napoli are also interested in signing Leroy Sané. Now you can imagine getting Kevin De Bruyne on a free transfer and also getting Leroy Sané on a free transfer, because Leroy Sané and Bayern Munich are yet to agree to terms over a new contract. But Bayern Munich are still hopeful to extend his contract with new talks having taken place. However, a free transfer on the extension, both options are still open. So it could be that both parties do not agree eventually and he leaves Bayern Munich, but Galatasaray are interested and are really ready to offer him the high wages that he could demand. He's 29 years of age right now, but then Napoli are also in the conversation. I don't know, guys, if you're really observing the kind of players that Napoli are going for. They're looking at experience, but also they want to bring youngsters in there. Of course, that's that's the expectation in one or the other. Because if let's take assumptions. If they were to win the rest to sign, let's say Leroy Sané, formerly at Manchester City, we all know, and then add in a Kevin De Bruyne there. They've just had a wonderful season with Scott McTominay, Bill Gilmore. Then possibly they do, let's say, get a Jonathan David, because they know Lukaku is, sort of diving down out of his prime and that kind of thing. And maybe we're even able to get Rasmus Højlund out of Manchester United. That could be really, really, really an interesting setup of cohort of players for the Naples best club to really, really add to their ranks. Anyways, let's move away from the German Bundesliga a bit, but of course, talks do continue between Liverpool and Bayer Leverkusen over a transfer fee for Florian Wirtz. That's in as far as we are concerned. So that's the only update from that side with respect to that transfer. And then now let's go to maybe before we go to the Premier League and speak Manchester United. Ansu Fati is on the verge of joining AC Monaco in a deal believed to be slightly under 20 million euros. There, it is understood that Monaco and Barcelona are negotiating a fee lower than 20 million euros. That's according to Fabrizio Romano, but with an important sell-on clause. So looks like Ansu Fati could be headed to the French League One. Remember, he's one of those youngsters that broke out at Barcelona a few years ago and was even given the shirt number 10, formerly worn by Lionel Messi. And I mean, he suffered a couple of injuries and he was never the same player. He did play for Brighton on a half-season loan during Roberto Di Zerbi's spell with Brighton, but then they never made that deal permanent and that kind of thing. So really, really interesting news. Let's move on to the Premier League and specifically Manchester United, because they are making the rounds, they are making the news, they are dominating the news, whether for good or bad reasons. That's a whole different story. But Victor Lindelof has been informed that he will not be continuing with Manchester United after this season, and it is understood that he has proposals from Italy as well as Spain. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. The Swedish centre-back will be leaving Manchester United at the end of the season. That decision was made following this week's meeting, because it is widely reported that there was a meeting, I think on Saturday, sorry, not on Saturday, there was a meeting in the aftermath of losing the UEFA Europa League final against Tottenham, where the manager, Ruben Amorim, did meet the players and sort of had a candid talk with them. Now, remember, after the finals of the Europa League, the manager in Erik offered himself to leave the club without any compensation whatsoever, should the club deem it necessary that he leaves, should the club and the fans deem it that they do not want him anymore. And it looks like they are not taking him up on that offer. They are not taking him up on that offer. So according to The Athletic, Ruben Amorim did speak with those players. So following Wednesday's Europa League final defeat by Tottenham, the Portuguese head coach offered to walk away from Old Trafford without any compensation if the board and fans no longer felt he was the man for the job. Looks like they're not taking him up on that offer, so he's staying. Now, since they did take him up on that offer, he has told his players that he will be staying in the job. That's according to The Athletic. And while at that meeting, Victor Lindelof was equally informed that his services will no longer be needed in Manchester. But also, he did inform Alejandro Garnacho that he needs to find a new club. That's according to The Athletic. Ruben Amorim has informed Manchester United squad he will remain in charge next season, while telling Alejandro Garnacho to find a new club. That's according to an exclusive by The Athletic. Sources with knowledge of the matter, speaking anonymously to protect relationships, indicate Amorim addressed players at the club's training ground, Carrington Ground, Carrington training ground on Saturday to inform them of his own plans and those for Garnacho. So that is some of the news that is coming out of Manchester United. So really, really interesting. But like we've spoken before, Alejandro Garnacho did attract interest from Chelsea and Napoli. Those were the leading contenders for the signature of the 20-year-old Argentine international. I think any club that signs him will really, really have a bit of a rough diamond on their hands. There is a very decent player in Alejandro Garnacho. One, he needs to polish on his finishing. He needs to polish on his decision making, and I think a manager like Antonio Conte can really drill him into being a much better player. So for me, I mean, ideally, if I were him, between Chelsea and Napoli, where would I go? If it's for the money, you go to Chelsea. If it's for football, then ideally he should go to Napoli. But whatever his decision will be, I will wait to see. But remember, that news does come in the wake of course, the player did express a certain level of dissatisfaction after having not been chosen in the starting lineup. Excuse me. After having not been chosen in the starting lineup in their one loss against Tottenham Hotspurs, that was on Wednesday night. He spoke about his frustration that he had started majority of the games leading up to the final, and then when the final came, he was only offered 20 minutes as a substitute, which those comments seem not to have rubbed some Manchester United fans the right way, as well as the coach, who has chosen to let him know that he will be leaving the club. So, are Manchester United making the right decision? Yes and no. Because personally, I believe that the player of his age, like Alejandro Garnacho, never mind that he did speak to other clubs in January, at least his representatives did speak to other clubs in January. He's still a young player. He's only 20 years of age. Those are the kinds of players that you sit down with as a manager and show them your vision and show them your plan for them and sort of convince them to be a part of your exciting project. But also on the other side, I do understand why they would want to let go of such a player who feels that he is not in the right place, because you do not want one bad apple to spoil the rest of the basket. And that's why players like Jordan Sancho, Marcus Rashford have sort of been pushed out of the club. And Alejandro Garnacho is only being added to that list. And then, of course, for Anthony, I think the case is quite different. For him, eventually, with all the managerial changes, of course, he had his own struggles for the start to his career in England and Manchester United as a whole, and then came a change of manager, moving out a manager in Erik who had signed him, who sort of had the confidence in him, in his abilities and that kind of thing. And then you had the new manager in Ruben Amorim, who perhaps was not really willing to give him so many chances to try out things, or perhaps in his own assessment, assessed that he will be a part of his future plans, decided to send him out on loan. And that decision has really paid off, because Real Betis and their fans are desperate to keep Anthony. And they did allude to something close to the region of starting a GoFundMe page to make sure that they raise funds to retain Anthony. And one of the club legends, Joaquin, did say that they must do whatever it takes to keep Anthony. Very exciting talent. 9 goals and 5 assists in all competitions in the last 4 months, featuring for Real Betis. Of course, including one game in which he got a red card. He is a bit of a hot temper sometimes, but that's to be expected. It's been a bit synonymous with some Brazilians in recent times. We've seen it with Vinicius Junior and that kind of thing. Anyways, so that's the news for Manchester United. Maybe briefly about still Manchester United. Everton have entered the race to sign Liam Delap from Ipswich Town, and they have convinced him that, or they've told him that he will be a starter in their team. I think they do expect Dominic Calvert-Lewin to leave the club. So David Moyes is in for him. There's also a young winger from Liverpool, from the Liverpool Academy that Everton are trying to sign. Although it is believed that Liverpool value the youngster at about £30 million, which is quite expensive. But also the Ipswich manager in Kieran McKenna did acknowledge or admit that Liam Delap will be leaving the club at the end of the season. So there's interest from Manchester United, from Chelsea, and Manchester United are by the leading that race, as well as Everton. But the player will make his decision in the near future. If you're a player like Liam Delap, where would you go? Really, it's a bit of a difficult, question really for a player as young as he is, about 21 years of age or 22. I think he's 21 because he's going to be playing for England in the under 21 competitions. So you ask yourself, I do not think, maybe for purposes of context and history and that kind of thing, Manchester United is not really an attractive place to be right now at the moment. And I'm sorry to say this if it rubs people the wrong way, but the whole environment around Manchester United, when you look at some of the big talents they've been able to bring in over the last couple of seasons, and you look at where they are really, it's not really a place that when you have options on the table that you'll be really thinking, oh, that's where I need to go and play my football. And for a player who is that young, you could go to Everton, be a starter, and sort of be a king of the hill and eventually get the good move to a bigger club. Or you could go to Chelsea. But when you go to Chelsea, given how many numbers of players there are, signing and all that, the competition may be higher in regards to you having to fight for playing time, which is not a bad thing for youngsters to compete for, but also moving to a bigger team where demands are bigger, you may need a bit of time to sort of settle in and compete favorably. So it's a bit of a difficult decision to make really when you Liam Delap, but Manchester United does not really feel that environment is good for a player like him at the moment. That's just my feeling. But we'll see where he chooses to play his football from in as far as next season is concerned. So let's wait and see. But Manchester United are still leading that race. Everything with Matthias Cunha, for some reason, like we spoke in the morning broadcast, have sort of cooled down a bit. We do not know for whatever reason. But also, we do know that Manchester United are dropping another 200 employees. 200 staff are being cut off. Again, the club is trying to save some money. They're going to have to sell some players to recruit players. It's been reported by some media outlets that Manchester United need to consider players in the region of 10 to 20 million pounds as Ruben Amorim looks to build his side and that kind of thing. So really. Then still Manchester United, Al Hilal are not giving up on pursuing Bruno Fernandes, although it is being reported that they are going to need a lot of convincing for him, but he is attracted by the idea of making lots of money, really. At his age, he says it's really tempting. It's really tempting. And like I said, £700,000 per week plus bonuses is really a tempting offer for a player that they are willing to offer a 3-year contract. So quite interesting, quite really interesting. And according to these reports, Al Hilal are set to offer £100 million for Bruno Fernandes from Manchester United, and that's because Manchester United captain Bruno Fernandes will be given a deadline for the next week to decide if he wants to leave the club, with Al Hilal set to offer around £100 million for the Portuguese international, who turns 31 in September, and would earn around £60 million per season. Now, you can imagine, that's a great deal of money, £65 million per season. And I would want to assume that's after taxes, because from what I gather, although not factually to the T or to the letter is the Saudi Arabia taxes or income taxes on players are not so high, and that's one of the reasons that many have been attracted to really make the move there. For those that do want to make themselves some good money. And I remember when Ruben Neves was leaving Wolverhampton Wanderers to go to the Saudi Pro League, he said he needs to set himself, his family up. 65 million pounds in 1 year. That's enough to set yourself up and your entire clan, so to speak, quote unquote. So really, really tempting offer. And 100 million pounds, if you're Manchester United, or even more, for a player that is soon turning 31, I mean, get that money. Get that money, because then it gives you more than a little more than a 50% profit on the player too. So that money gets you in the good books of PSR, and then you can spend that to reinvest. We are already being told that Ruben Amorim may have a budget of 100 million pounds. TX10 says hi TX10, welcome to the channel and thank you for joining us. So kindly let me know where you're joining us from and what team do you support, if any, if you're a football fan. So if you're Manchester United and you have your Ruben Amorim and you're thinking, yes, I do not want to sell Bruno Fernandes. He's the crown jewel in this, setup of mine. But 100 million pounds for the club is good money. I can use 100 million pounds to get at least 2 or 3 good players to replace Bruno Fernandes. I get a number 10, I get a number 8 in the same window, and that would really, really serve me. I think he does have a bit of scouting network in around Portugal and elsewhere to go and identify players that would command such fees that he can bring to Manchester United and really work with them. So it will be really, really interesting, because if you're Manchester United, you're thinking to yourself, okay, we have Bruno Fernandes, but even with him, we're still struggling. Yes, maybe without his goals and contributions, we would have been relegated this season, but we've survived that. So, but we've still not won anything. We are still 16th on the Premier League table and could eventually end 17th when the season culminates, So why not take the 100 million pounds and then write that to our books and move on? Really, why not? So it's an interesting conversation to really have for Manchester United fans. It should be food for thought. And that's why I keep saying, I want to have Manchester United fans on the broadcast and hear from them. What do they think? What would be their view of about Bruno Fernandes? What do they think about, retaining Bruno Fernandes or selling him? I would really, really love to hear what their opinion is on a player like Bruno Fernandes, given the financial position that they do find themselves in, but also looking forward to the future. And I did find a very, very interesting comment from a Manchester United fan, by the way, I need to read it out for you guys because I found the submission quite interesting. It was from a gentleman called, I think he's called Maurice Cato. He's called Maurice Cato. He's a Manchester United fan, and this is what he had to say. It was a bad night, yes, and he was speaking in reference to their loss in the UEFA Europa League, and he did say it was a bad night. Yes, we are sad, but as a consolation, I'm glad to say that we are finally where we belong, and we are supposed to be. Look at it this way: you are Manchester United, and you say you are in that position. What do you do? He goes on to say, you have to accept things have. You have to accept that things haven't. Sorry, you have to accept that things you haven't believed, and you have to accept the things that you haven't believed and paid enough attention to, and not only this season, by the way, but the entire time. Let's say a decade back when they started sacking managers like nothing. So I find that quite a very interesting assessment. Then he goes on to say, so being in a position we are in, it's time to rethink and know that you are no longer Manchester United of the 90s, perhaps even the 2000s or early 20s. Start from scratch and have a brand new strategy, new team, lay low, have a strategic plan, and have your expectations not for this season or the next season, but rather seasons ahead. I think he alludes that Manchester United sort of need to press the reset button and sort of look at things differently and say, okay, admit that you sank this low and to a certain extent, although this all impacts the team in more ways than not, especially when it comes to the financial side. So make changes, not for the season next, not for the season after that, but for at least 5 years. When Ineos took over, they said that they want to win the Premier League in the 2027-2028 Premier League season, which I thought was a good plan or a good vision to have. Where are we now? So we finished 2024-2025 season. That was their debut season. We have 2025-2026. We have 2026-2027. So they have another 2 seasons to try and achieve that objective that they set for themselves, to try and win in 4 years' time. So they have that objective to try and achieve. So really for me, it begs the question of how long because 4 years is a good time. Because when you look at the example of Arsenal, when Mikel Arteta walks in, he talks about a process, a project, and at some point he tried to explain it, that he says it will go back. Whether that has taken more time than he had predicted, but at least he was open about this whole journey being a process that culminates to something. And that's why Arsenal fans feel that that journey has led them to a place where they are competitive enough that they can compete with the big boys. They need him to now get it over the line and go away from finishing second to now being champion in the Premier League. Go away from being knocked out in the UEFA Champions League, go to the final and eventually win it. That's the stage. So I think when reading that comment, what I do gather from it is that let's acknowledge that we need to pull out some players, knock those ones off the list, and say the way again Mikel Arteta did it. He got rid of some players, Socrates, Pastatopoulos, Asid Kolasinac. These are some of players that Arsenal had to pay for them to leave, because they had to pay their contracts and have them leave. Of course, when there were disagreements with Mesut Ozil, he ended up leaving. Aubameyang, discipline issues, left. Alexander Lacazette left. So Rob Holding eventually left. You had an entire David Luiz out of the door. You've had, players leave gradually. And when you look back, he went on to sign players like Pablo Mari. Never mind that it never worked out so well for him eventually. But that's when you bring into Niasu, Ramsdale, Ben White, and for me, there's been a bit of an evolution to it. Then you bring in Saliba, had already been signed but was still out on loans. Gabriel Magalhaes, and all these other players that have been signed. Now, he looks at his team and he says, okay, we bought this player, but it looks like he's weak in these areas. And that's where the issue came with Aaron Ramsdale. Very good goalkeeper, but sometimes when it came to the nitty-gritties, he had lapses either in concentration or he was just not up to the mark. Excuse me. And that's how Arsenal ended up getting David Raya on loan, who they had targeted for quite some time, because he's the player they had wanted to sign before signing Aaron Ramsdale. But when Brentford refused to offer the player up for sale, they went for Aaron Ramsdale, had him for 2 brilliant seasons as their number 1 goalkeeper, and eventually shoved him aside. Excuse me. So even Manchester United need something similar. Yes, you bought an Andre Onana for 50 million euros from Inter Milan. If you think he's not the player that is going to get you over the line, over certain areas, then look to change. But I do think Andre Onana can still fit within this component. You brought in players like Lenioro, Matas, Elite. You still have Harry Maguire with his experience and seniority. You brought in Patrick Dogu, you have Mazorui. We're talking about new players that have just come to the club. You brought in Aiden Heaven, those are new players. So That's a building block for a manager to start with. And then adding one or two pieces and then teach them your way. You begin your process. Then the midfield. Manuel Ugarte is quite new. I do not know for why, for some reason, Kobe Mino, I felt he's not been really trusted. Until just yesterday, Kobe Mino was the best player in that Manchester United side. So much so that he was summoned for the England national team and he was starting in the Euros 2024 in Germany. So what has gone wrong for a youngster in so quick a time? But we've seen Ruben Amorim play him as a false nine. Really? He's predominantly a number 6, number 8 kind of player. So play him in his right position. That's for starters, really. So you have Manuel Ugarte, get rid of Casemiro, and then buy a player, go out, look for a number 8 in the market. Then the attackers, maybe Rasmus Højlund needs to go trade his, apply his trade from elsewhere. But Joshua Zirkzee, he's only been here one season. Give him a chance. You have Amadou Diallo. Of course, he has his injury concerns, but there's a very good player in there. Then you do have, what's his name? Of course, Alejandro Garnacho has been shown the exit, has been told to leave the club. That's a foregone case. We do know that you're not going to give Marcus Rashford a chance, so you're selling those so that you get replacements for the player profiles that you want. Same goes for Jadon Sancho, same goes for Anthony. So you sign these wingers that you really like, the Antoine Semenyo's that you want, you go for a player like Matthias Cunha that you really want, Liam Delap to add on, although I get the feeling that Man United need a more senior striker for these young strikers to learn from, because you have Chido Martin Obi, still a young striker, Joshua Zirkzee about 23 years of age, Rasmus Højlund not a higher profile. Then if you bring in Liam Delap, will still be in the same cohort, no experience, nothing whatsoever, and we all know the kind of strikers that Man United have had over the years. They've always blended youngsters with experience. When Wayne Rooney was joining Manchester United, you still had, senior strikers in that team and that kind of thing. You all remember when Ferguson wanted to win the league, he went to Arsenal and picked an experienced Robin van Persie to come and score the goals and that kind of thing. So, and yet Rooney was still around at the time. So they need, I think they need to go all out and convince Victor Gyökeres to join them, and then build those components slowly by slowly. Because while Harry Amas may be good, he may not be good enough to really compete at the top level. So you need him as a squad player, but you need to get this best first 11. Okay, I'll go back to that Arsenal side for purposes of comparison. When Mikel Arteta walks in, of course, he finishes 8th, and so does he in his second season, which will predominantly remember to be the COVID season. That was 2020-2021. But 2022-2023 season, sorry, that was because he comes in 2019-2020, yes, 2020-2021, that season, he also finishes 8th. But 2021-2022, that's the season where things started to click. But he had so many youngsters in that team. Ben White, playing alongside Gabriel Magalhaes, Ramsdale, Martinelli, Saka, Emily Smith-Rowe, Martin Odegaard. I think he had returned, I think he was just returning to Arsenal for his second loan spell, which was it a loan spell, or I think that's when they signed him fully. So that group of youngsters, of course, we saw what happened to them when it came to the finishing line to qualify for Europe, for the UEFA Champions League. They sort of collapsed, lost to Newcastle, got beat by Tottenham who were under the charges of Antonio Conte at the time. So they lost and failed to qualify for the UEFA Champions League. But that season in itself signaled that this project was progressing, only that it had progressed faster than anybody had anticipated. So while the miss out on UEFA Champions League was a disappointment, there was an encouragement that they were going in the right direction to a larger extent. So Man United needs something similar. Whether it takes that equally longer time, that's a different story. But at least they need that kind of mindset. So going into next season, the objective should be nothing about winning the league. I'm not saying a team like Manchester United doesn't deserve to dream that, but take things slow. Set your objectives that, okay, we've had a very bad season. We're not this kind of team, but let the bare minimum be qualifying for Europe again next season. And what does that mean? It means the bare minimum, a UEFA Conference League, a UEFA Europa League position. So that's anywhere between 8th and 6th place. That's what you're targeting. And what do we need for us to get there? That in the first 19 games of the season, which is the first half of the season, how many points are we looking to amass out of 57 points in the first 19 games of the season? Look to have anywhere between 32 to 40 points. That should be the target. But also building a process, building a playing system, a style that is the winning style. So you need to look at something like that. So, because if you can achieve that, that means eventually, by the time the season ends, you have maybe 60 to 70 points. That's the target. So remember when Leicester City went on to win the league, what Claudio Ranieri told his Leicester City players, all I want is 40 points for us not to be relegated. They achieved, they achieved the 40 points well in time, and eventually ended up going in all to win the league. So again, a bit of reset button, but Man United will need to blend a bit of experience, and that's why I think they need, for some of their signings, they need them to be Premier League players that are already know the league, that are not going to take a lot of time to adapt. So that's why getting Matthias Cunha is a good idea. Liam Delap would be a good idea, although I do not think, for me, he has the experience. You'd rather attempt maybe Aston Villa into buying Oli Watkins. Then again, if you need a centre back, maybe again Gerard Braithwaite could be too expensive for you. McKay, a lot of competition for him between Newcastle and Chelsea, so could be a bit of a difficult one. Maybe you go to Nottingham Forest and tempt them into buying Milenkovic or Murillo. I mean, who knows? Be ambitious, even with the little finances. So I think Manchester United can really pull themselves out of that shithole, but they need to convince themselves of a particular plan, of a particular project, but more so, they need to have something that has a face, a playing style, a formula that is going to win you some games. I mean, they've really done well against the big sides. Why did you do so well against the big sides and lose against the small sides? Let it be a mission that you do not lose to a small team next season. Maybe that can be a set objective, that whatever happens, we are not losing to any team that finished within the bottom half of the table. That's from 10th place and below. Now, unfortunately, this season, you're one of them. So you're looking from 10th place and downwards. Downwards means even the newly promoted sides. That's Burnley, Sunderland, who by the way got promoted today after beating Sheffield United by 2-1 in that championship playoff final at Wembley. And then the other is Burnley, Sunderland, and Leeds. So just by not losing to those sides, if you are to beat them home and away, that gives you 60 points. Really, that kind of mission. So really, United need something quite to better their odds going into next season, because if they do have a bad start, then unfortunately there will be too much pressure, especially external pressure for the team minders, the board and management, and the pressure will be coming from the fans, and eventually they get to sack you. Because from what I've seen when it comes to football management is that sometimes the board or the management team that you're working with, so there are things they get to see that they are convinced about, that you're the right person, and maybe you need a little bit more time. But when the pressure of the fans comes in, usually it does not end well. Because one, it comes with loss of match day revenue. fewer fans are coming to the stadium. Two, you have the protests and you're getting all the bad PR and that kind of thing. And then we have the will of the media. Once the media start whipping you up, trust me, it will be bad article after bad article after bad article, and suddenly you'll be the face of bad football all over English media. And then that takes a toll on you. You begin questioning your own credentials and your own tactics. And suddenly you begin hearing, dressing room player cocoons and divisions. And once you lose the dressing room, there's nothing you can do about it, about the results, because eventually you end up with bad results, and with bad results, come more pressure, and then players just give up on you. They just give up on you, and you no longer have them. And once you lose them, the results are not going to come your way. You're going to get sacked. Unfortunately, that's how it works with big teams. And while we speak about Arsenal, we keep referencing about that COVID season, because there's a period of time when Arsenal won only one game in a space of 10 games. And that was a 1-0 victory against Manchester United at Old Trafford. It was a penalty by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Then in that cohort of still 10 games, I think they had about 2 or 3 draws, and all the others were losses. So that one in itself was so bad. But here we are. By the time we entered this year, Man United had 30 points. How many have they added on since then? Only 9. Only 9. So it's not really been pretty. It's not really been pretty. But it is what it is. That's the situation at Manchester United. So, but Ruben Amorim will be staying for next season, and that's what he's told his players, that he is available for next season. But Alejandro Garnacho won't be part of their plans going forward. So he needs to find a new club where he can trade his, football elsewhere, in as far as the following season is concerned. So, anyways, as far as the transfer market is concerned, it's been a bit of a quiet one, really, today as compared to yesterday. But I just thought I should get this quote about from Ruben Amorim. Okay, maybe just an update on Jonathan David. Napoli proposal for Jonathan David is as a free agent remains the most important one on the table among Italian clubs interested. Terms discussed at advanced stages, but details of the release clause yet to be clarified. New round of talks next week between all parties. That's according to Fabrizio Romano. Then regarding Ruben Amorim on Bruno and Saudi, he says it's important for Bruno to see that we are changing a lot of things in our club, the behavior, everyday organization, pace of training, and then he will want to stay at this club. He loves this club. That's not really in question. Bruno Fernandes is the captain. He does really love Manchester United, but you can never say never when it comes to the transfer market. He could be tempted to leave the club. Then this is regarding Kevin De Bruyne, and Napoli's proposal to Kevin De Bruyne will be valid for 3 years, 6 million euros as net salary per year for first 2 seasons, and 5 million euros net for the 3rd season, plus the sign-on fees. Then KDB expected to announce his decision soon, as he still has Chicago Fire proposal on the table. So Chicago Fire from the Major League Soccer are also still on the table regarding Kevin De Bruyne. So we'll know what his final decision will be in the next few days. Then Lucas Vazquez did celebrate 400 games for Real Madrid as he said goodbye to the Santiago Bernabeu. While we were speaking about Real Madrid, we spoke about Luka Modric, and forgot to mention that it was Carlo Ancelotti's final game at Real Madrid. He's going to be leaving to join the Brazil national team. That's on Monday as the head coach. Then Xabi Alonso will start his work with Real Madrid on Monday in preparation for the FIFA Club World Cup. But Lucas Vazquez will also be leaving the club at the end of the FIFA Club World Cup. So that is also there as well. So he will be leaving as well. Then this is regarding Jack Grealish. Jack Grealish not in the Manchester City squad for the final game of the Premier League season. The feeling at Manchester City is that his exit in the summer transfer window is almost guaranteed, looking for solutions. So, I mean, there you have it. Jack Grealish, again, he's one of those players that we've spoken about before. He's one of those players we've spoken about before for a potential exit at Manchester City, in addition to John Stones, Ederson Morales, Ilkay Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Kyle Walker, that's already confirmed. Really, as some of the so many senior players that will be leaving Manchester City at the end of what has been quite a very brilliant era for them, where they won all Premier League titles, at least 6 with Pep Guardiola. That's 4 consecutively, and then the other 2 between 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019, and then of course the UEFA Champions League. Morris says you should spare some time and talk about how crazy the weekend we've had. Arsenal, Aberdeen, Sunderland, and others. We did speak about Arsenal at the start of this broadcast and congratulated Arsenal women upon winning their second UEFA Champions League title for the women's football, taking it from Barcelona, who had defended it for the last 2 seasons. Lyon have won it the most times, as many as 8 times. And then we did speak about Sunderland. They beat up against Sheffield United by 2-1. That winning goal coming in stoppage time, as they won it at Wembley to go on and their promotion to the Premier League next season. The only team that we did not get to speak about is Aberdeen, but I think we'll get time to speak about Aberdeen maybe in tomorrow's broadcast. But it's been quite interesting, really interesting in regards to today's conversation. But thank you for that submission, Morris. So anyways, that's been the gist of today's conversation. Then yesterday, we spoke about Kaoru Mitoma being on the list for Bayern Munich as a potential replacement for Leroy Sané and Kingsley Coman. We also spoke about Rafael Leao and Florian Plettenberg, who works with Sky Sport Germany, has this to say that Max Ebel and Christopher Freund have already met personally with Kaoru Mitoma's agents. As revealed yesterday, Mitoma has signaled that he would be open to a move. Bayern Munich have been informed that a transfer fee could be possible around 50 million euros. Brighton are keen to keep him, but Mitoma is currently high on Bayern's list of potential replacements for Kingsley Coman or Leroy Sané. No agreements/offers yet. Bayern are also in contact with Jorge Mendes over Rafael Leao. So again, another story that we spoke about yesterday in regards to Bayern Munich's plans for this summer transfer window. Of course, they brought in Jonathan Tah from Bayer Leverkusen as a replacement for Erik Dyer, who will be joining AC Monaco in France, to where he will be playing next season. So again, they're also looking at Christopher Nkunku. We all know that Chelsea have already revealed that, okay, not outrightly, but it's an open secret that Christopher Nkunku will be leaving Chelsea at the end of the season. So that's there. He's there for the taking for any club that wants him. And Bayern were considering Christopher Nkunku, Xavi Simons at RB Leipzig, and then Florian Wirtz. But we all know where Florian Wirtz has chosen to play his football next season. So that's been I think the gist of it in regards to today's conversation. Unless there are any questions as regards to mainly transfers. Earlier on in the morning, we did speak about the preview. We had the preview for those weekend, games that will be coming on Super Sunday. All games will kick off at 6 p.m. As we close out the Premier League season. But okay, maybe briefly about Aberdeen is won, the Scottish Cup after beating up against Celtic. Now, Celtic have had a very weird season. First of all, they were leading the table. They squandered that with about 5-6 games left to play. They conceded. They ended up losing the Eredivisie at title to PSV, who is one of their rivals. So, and the manager has since resigned, or who will be leaving the club has communicated that, and there was speculation linking Erik with the potential return to Ajax. Sorry, apologies. I've mixed up a few things here. Celtic, Scottish Premier League, as well as Aberdeen. I do not know why I brought in Ajax and PSV from the Eredivisie. Apologies on that. I guess my mind was racing so fast. But anyways, Aberdeen have made their history, beating Celtic 4-3 in the finals on penalties after 1-1 draw in normal time to win the Scottish Cup final. We all know Celtic does dominate the Scottish Premier League, and with Brendan Rodgers, they proved to be too strong for any side to, to beat. They've ended their 35-year wait for, for a trophy and that kind of thing. That's what Morris wanted me to speak about. But again, I'll maybe try to expound more on that tomorrow. Otherwise, it's been good having you guys for today's podcast. Let's engage tomorrow. Have yourselves a wonderful night. Bye-bye.